We're at war. Why you fight war?
Stuck in the desert for 100 hours, knowing your next move could be deadly. Could they make it out alive?
Hello, welcome to our channel. Today we'll recap and review the events of this 2016's military thriller, Mine. Let's check it out.
As Mike, a stern, powerful Marine, is transported to a mission via helicopter. He is a sniper and his spotter, Tommy, are far out in the desert waiting for visual contact with enemy. Mike seems serious while Tommy is the lighter, more fun-loving soldier type. We learn it's been 3 months since he said goodbye to his wife, Jenny. Mike quietens Tommy's joking down as he notices a convoy of vehicles approaching on one side and a group of men approaching from the other. Something big is about to go down, and these two groups converge on each other. Over the radio, we hear their target is Saeed, a 65-year-old man who they spot leaving one of the trucks. As Mike readies to pull the trigger, a woman dressed in bridal clothing appears from a carriage. He hesitates, and in that moment, he loses his shot. The tension builds. Both Tommy and the man on the other end of the radio urge Tommy to take the shot, killing both Saeed and his son, who's blocking the shot. Mike continues to hesitate and radios that he's missed the shot, refusing to take it. Down at the wedding, one of the guards sees his sniper lens glint in the sun, and they begin firing. Their cover lost, Tommy and Mike take off running. They traverse the unfriendly, rocky terrain, desperately trying to put distance between them and their pursuers. They take shelter behind a rocky outcrop while a truck of men pull up just meters away. Using his initiative, Mike fires a shot at a distant wall of rock. His distraction works and the men get back in the truck and drive towards it. The danger isn't over yet. On the horizon, a giant sandstorm is rolling fast. Tommy and Mike make it through the storm, allowing them to get away from their pursuers. The storm passes and they are now deep in the desert. Tommy complains that this is the second Tuesday of the month, the day he usually calls his son. He hasn't failed to meet this meeting once until now. Radio contact tells them that for now, they are safe from the enemy troops, but as no vehicles were requested for this mission, they will need to continue to make their way across the desert towards an extraction point on foot. Time passes and a series of fade-outs shows that the two Marines have been walking in the sand for a long time. Looking out over the horizon, Mike notices a sign floating on the wind. It lands at his feet. It has Arabic script on it with the ominous picture of a skull.
Mike says that there are over 33 million unexploded mines in the area they're in. Tommy shrugs it off. It's an old sign. The mines might not even be a problem. He says they should both keep moving until they reach the village where they'll be extracted.
Tommy's upbeat attitude continues, severely at odds with Mike's fear that now controls his every cautious step. Tommy carelessly walks backwards, fearless of any sort of danger, and as the music swells, we can sense that something terrible is about to happen. Just like that, Tommy puts a foot wrong and we hear a click. Mike yells for him to stop, but it's too late. The mine detonates. Mike also steps on a mine and we hear a click, but his caution makes him stop and he keeps his footing. The explosion is deafening and leaves Mike's ears ringing. As the dust settles, we see the impact of the explosion. Tommy lies, screaming in agony, both legs blown off from his body. He's hysterical. The pain is unbearable. Mike tries to calm him, telling him to reach for the morphine in his pack to ease the pain, using the memory of his son to steady him. Tommy tries to radio for help, but Mike doesn't copy him. Tommy takes his pistol from his pack and cocks it, holding it to his head. He knows that in his state, with no legs, he's putting Mike in danger. He pulls the trigger and kills himself. Mike collects himself and slowly takes a knee, placing his knife into the sand until he feels it tap against the mine beneath his feet. He removes his hatchet from his pack and ties a rope around the handle and starts throwing it towards Tommy's bag. He fails the first few attempts but eventually succeeds and pulls the radio towards him, but it's no longer working. Searching for spare batteries, he finds none and notices that they are far out of reach in Tommy's chest pack. Instead, he removes a solar battery and leaves it in the sun, waiting on his knee for time to pass as the device charges. Eventually, the radio kicks in. Mike calls for help and finally he gets somewhere. The voice on the other side of the radio responds and asks for an update. He fills him in on the situation and Tommy's death. However, it's not good news. They cannot send any helicopters to pick them up, and the best they can offer is a convoy of vehicles passing by in 52 hours. The voice on the radio suggests that if he feels like he can't make it for 52 hours, that he should attempt the shoeman maneuver, digging a trench next to his position and rolling into it to minimize any damage. This is the best the voice can offer, and it ends communication there. Mike's trouble is only just beginning, of course. Over the ridge, a sandstorm descends upon and surrounds him in high winds and thick sand. Mike bears down and does his best to keep his foot grounded. When the storm passes, it has dragged Tommy's body to him, bringing the batteries for the radio into arm's reach. Retrieving the batteries, he sees a photo of Tommy's family and is momentarily distracted before looking for the radio, which has been moved far out of reach by the storm. The irony of this moment means there's nothing that Mike can do but laugh. Suddenly, a man appears in the desert.
Lucky for Mike, he speaks English, but he seems strange and unhelpful, like a mischievous creation of Mike's mind. Mike hands him his flask and asks for his radio, which the man refuses.
He continues to tell Mike that he needs to take the next step, which is an unhelpful advice, of course, in Mike's current situation, where his next step would be his last. And so, with Mike's flask, the man leaves. Time passes, and believe it or not, a little girl returns carrying back Mike's flask, now filled with water. She shows him a little toy soldier, similar to the one that he found earlier before he was trapped. The girl says nothing as she hands him the flask, and she too ignores his pleas for her to bring him the radio before running off into the desert. As night falls, Mike puts his headphones in his ears to listen to some Nina Simone and pass the time while he lights a fire to keep him warm against the cold desert air. He watches a video of his wife, Jenny, on his phone to remind him of his life back home and to keep him strong. As the fire goes out, he suddenly starts to awaken to the memory of being struck in the face by a man in a flannel shirt. In the darkness, he hears the growling of wolves. He fires his rifle into the darkness, hoping to hit one, but he has no luck. One of the wolves drags Tommy's body away, and as the other comes in for the kill, he shoots it and it falls on a mine, and the explosion lights up the sky. The next morning, the man returns. He says his name is Berber, and he continues to taunt Mike in his strange, playful tone. After engaging in bizarre philosophy about how every day any step that Mike takes could be his last, he agrees to return the radio to Mike. Berber brings him the radio and asks him why he is fighting this war. He says he has no reason to stay at home.
If this is true, it could be a hint that his wife Jenny has passed away or left him. It's unclear at this point, but we begin to understand more about Mike in this moment.
The heat slowly starts to seep into Mike's brain as he becomes delirious. He starts talking to himself, angry about his wife, about whatever happened being his fault. Suddenly, he's having hallucinations of Tommy, unharmed and alive.
Though he's actually a hallucination, Tommy now seems to be the voice of reason for Mike. He calms him and reminds him of Jenny, reinforcing her memory and telling him that's why he has to live.
Suddenly, Tommy is gone, but the wolves are back. Now to protect him is the memory of his superior, Commander Barton. He shouts encouragement at Mike, telling him to dig a trench to escape. He digs rapidly and rolls off the mine. It detonates, but we see this was only a hallucination. Instead, Mike is fighting the wolves with his knife. The whole time he has flashes of the past, of his father beating him, of Jenny leaving him, before coming to his senses, with the bodies of the dead wolves around him and his radio crackling to life. The voice on the other side tells him that the convoy charged with his rescue is inbound, though it has been caught in a firefight, and he will now have to wait 70 hours for extraction. The voice says he has someone on the other end to speak to Mike. He senses that it must be Jenny. He uses this moment to apologize for everything he has done over the years. He becomes tearful as he shows regret for all his mistakes that led him to this situation. As he begins to pass out and fall forward off the mine, Berber is there to catch him, saving his life. Berber reveals that he too lost his leg to a mine, and it was this tragedy that gave him the positive outlook on life as he nurses Mike back to a stable state of mind. Berber mentions how he met his daughter. Berber is taken aback by this and reveals that his daughter died years ago when the mine took her leg, and now she used to use a technique with a tin can to defuse mines. Despite the loss of his daughter, Berber says he is free, and he reminds Mike that he has to keep moving forward. As Berber leaves, he is joined by his daughter, who runs to him and holds his hand as they both fade away into the air. As they vanish, a wall rises from the sand before Mike with a door in it. He reaches forward and opens the door, and suddenly, he's a child again at the mercy of his abusive alcoholic father. He looks on while his father torments and beats his mother before his father, punching him, snaps back to happy times painting with Jenny. These memories are soon replaced with Mike in a bar watching a fellow soldier harass Jenny. He dives on them and beats them up. Mike's hallucinations continue, and he is now beside his mother on her deathbed. Tommy snaps him out of it again and points out a military convoy on the horizon, urging Mike to get their attention. Mike is nearly dead, but he picks up his radio, and with what little energy he has left, he tries to alert the convoy to where he is, but it's no use. Then a bullet whizzes from nowhere and catches Mike in the gut. Flooded by memories of the past that give him one final surge of energy, he takes up his rifle and he stands his ground and fends off the attackers to surging string music. Mike's father appears to him and they embrace.
The classic theme of forgiving your father for his sins after they become your own is a strong theme of this film.
As Mike notices the convoy coming back around, he decides he has no choice left but to take that final step Berber spoke about. He summons his courage and steps off the mine, and to his surprise, nothing happens. It doesn't detonate. Digging it up, he finds that this mine has been defused by Berber's daughter, and inside the tin is one of her toy soldiers. Breaking down in tears, he pops his smoke and the convoy arrives to save him. We are back at the airport, Mike is returning home, and Jenny is waiting for him. As he reaches her, he symbolically takes a knee, replicating how he spent his time in the desert, and the film cuts to black.
In the end, the mine that trapped Mike wasn't real, but the lesson that it taught him to let go of his anger and forgive himself for his mistakes and to learn from them was what set him free. This is more a story of coming to terms with our faults than it is a high-octane thriller that sees characters trapped in a life-or-death situation. It's not action-packed and doesn't do much to play with its central premise, but the point of it is more to study the characters of Mike, the man trapped by his anger and his fear of becoming the father who he hated. Armie Hammer is a fantastic lead as always and brings heartfelt vulnerability to a powerful, hulking soldier. Please subscribe to our channel to be notified when we upload. Also, don't forget to suggest movies that you want us to recap in the future in the comments down below.